Welcome to Santa Clarita Weekly, where we cover all things local in Santa Clarita Valley every Saturday morning at 9 on KQRU 107.9. Join hosts Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty as they uncover the latest news, events, sports highlights, and more, keeping you connected and engaged with what matters most in our hometown.
All right, so welcome back for another edition of Santa Clarita Weekly with Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty. I'm Sage. He's Tim, and you can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. We're also on YouTube and Instagram, and you can find us online at santaclaritastar.com. So President Donald Trump visited the Pacific Palisades and met with Governor Gavin Newsom to see the areas damaged in the fires that have ravaged Los Angeles and Southern California all month. And one of those fires was in the Castaic area and prompted the evacuation of more than 30,000 people. And in sports, the Saugus boys basketball team moved into a first-place tie with the Valencia in the Foothill League. The Valencia girls have won 6 of their past 7 games and have a slight lead over Hart in the Foothill League. The Rams lost in the second round of the NFL playoffs, but they are one of the teams on the rise. The Kings are on the road again. This time, a 5-game East Coast trip, and have started it with losses to Columbus and Detroit. So, Tim, can you talk to us about the fires? I know you've been covering this for a couple weeks now.
Yes. So, President Trump visited the Pacific Palisades and met with Governor Gavin Newsom. He met with Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass before touring the burned areas in the Pacific Palisades on January 24th. It was Trump's first visit to Los Angeles since the fire started on January 7th and burned areas in Altadena, Pasadena, Sylmar, West Hills, Brentwood, and Castaic. The fuse fire in Castaic burned more than 10,000 acres, threatened homes, and more than 30,000 people were evacuated from the area, with 20,000 more put on evacuation notice. Schools closed, roads closed, and the Golden State Freeway through Castaic closed. College of the Canyons and Hart High School were turned into evacuation centers. COC was also turned into a media hub for the fire department to update media outlets on the fire conditions. President Trump, before visiting Los Angeles, on the same day he went to North Carolina to visit the areas hit by Hurricane Helene, said he was not going to provide disaster aid to California unless 2 conditions were met. He wanted California to follow voter ID laws, which it already does. California voted overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris for president. California flipped 3 Republican seats in the House of Representatives to Democrat, including the 27th district won by George Whitesides. California voted decidedly for Democrat Adam Schiff for Senate. And just because Republicans lose repeatedly in elections in California doesn't mean it's because of voter fraud. The president likes to say it's because of voter fraud, but like most of the things that he says, it's not true. Most Californians don't support Trump or Republicans. The voters speak, and it's pretty clear that they like the liberal Democrats more often than not. He wanted California to send water from the north to Los Angeles to help fight the fires, which isn't how water works. The Pacific Palisades is right next to the Pacific Ocean, hence the name. There was plenty of water to fight the fires. There was also 100-mile-per-hour winds that not only spread the fires quickly, but prevented aircraft from flying from the ocean to the fires. But Trump wants California to do things his way, and he won't help unless they submit to his demands. They were ridiculous demands. First, putting conditions on disaster aid to any state is a dangerous position for any U.S. president to take. Secondly, these 2 demands were not only unnecessary, they were an insult to the people who have suffered through these destructive fires. But insults are nothing new coming from Trump. Newsom met Trump on the tarmac at Los Angeles International Airport. Trump was not planning on meeting with Newsom during his visit to Los Angeles. Trump refused to take Newsom's calls, and Trump did not want to include Newsom in his plans to view the fire damage. Newsom made sure Trump did not ignore him or the people who have done the most to help stop the fires and to help people begin recovering. Instead of offering support and aid, Trump was more interested in pointing fingers and making pointless and useless declarations. Trump signed an executive order to send water from Northern California to Los Angeles, as if there is some magic faucet that can be turned on to put out the fires in another part of the state. The executive order does nothing to put out the fires. All it did is show how little Trump knows about firefighting and water distribution. Furthermore, Trump didn't stay in Los Angeles long enough. He was here less than 4 hours to see all the damage the fires have done. He didn't visit the damaged areas in Pasadena, Altadena, San Diego, Camarillo, West Hills, or Castaic. He didn't offer any words of support. He didn't offer any words of support for those victims. He didn't provide any comfort for the thousands of people outside of the Pacific Palisades who have been affected, who have lost their homes, their schools, their businesses, family members, and friends in the fires. Newsom addressed the Hughes fire in a video posted on TikTok.
So up here at the site of the Hughes fire, about 10,000 acres burned over the last 24 hours. This was a fire that was initiated on federal forest lands, the Angeles National Forest. I'll remind folks, 57% of all of our forest land in the state of California is under federal jurisdiction, just 3% under state jurisdiction. But our mindset is around mutual aid, mutual support. 4,000 personnel worked to contain this fire last night. No structure damage, and obviously the damage you see behind me mitigated substantially because of the break here at a state reservoir, which became the principal part of the fire suppression efforts that included our fire hawks overnight, the folks with the night goggles doing nighttime suppression and working with LA City and County resources and CAL FIRE. They were able to do a magnificent job. Hats off to our first responders.
In it, he reminded viewers that more than half the forest areas in California, 50%, 57%, are national forests. They are federal land. A good chunk of the areas burned in the Hughes fire is in the Angeles National Forest, a federal forest. Newsom didn't directly say that the areas burned in the Hughes fire is in a national forest and the responsibility of the president to manage and properly maintain them to prevent forest fires like the ones in Castaic, but it was heavily implied. The president would rather call the governor names and blame him for the fires in Los Angeles, and that is neither productive nor helpful. No disaster aid should come with conditions. For a president to even propose such an offer shows how little he cares about the people in California. His version of America First is clearly for only those Americans who put Trump first. It should be something all voters in California need to remember.
All right, it's him. So President Trump said he's going to put conditions. Does it look like he's actually going to put conditions, or is that just a threat, empty threat, or are there going to be conditions applied to aid?
Well, and in hearing how the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has been responding to the threats, to the conditions that Trump has made in regards to aid for California and the fire victims, it's gonna go through Congress to see if that aid is going to come with any strings attached to it. If you know anything from history, whatever the president tells Mike Johnson to do, Mike Johnson does. So I don't know if there's going to be the conditions that Trump said was going to be attached to any aid coming to California, but I do think it's going to not come without any strings. So there will be some conditions and there will be some demands that Congress will make on California. I just don't know what they are. And even if it is to change voter ID laws in California, there's nothing to change. So even if they make that demand and say you have to change your voter ID laws, it's pointless. Like I said that before, it's a pointless demand because it already happens. There is no voter ID fraud in California. It's been tried in courts. It's been challenged already. And the elections in our state in California have never been fraudulent. They are all past the court test and they've all been legitimate elections. So even if those demands are made and the Governor Newsom accepts those demands or whatever, concedes to those demands, it's not going to change anything. So like I said, the demands are pointless. And even if the governor agrees to the demands, it's not going to change the way that California does elections or distributes water in the state. So those things aren't going to change no matter how much President Trump says that his way of doing things is the right way. So yeah, I mean, the demands, the strings may come, but I don't think it's going to matter. You are listening to KQRU 107.9 FM in Santa Clarita. You can listen to Santa Clarita Weekly on Saturday mornings at 9 and on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm going to hand it over to Sage to talk about high school basketball.
So the Saugus boys basketball team beat Hart 61-59 and is tied with Valencia for first place in the Foothill League. Saugus added a win against Yeshiva University of Los Angeles and is 7-3 in the Foothill League. The Saugus boys play Golden Valley in their next Foothill League game. Meanwhile, the Valencia boys beat Castaic but lost to West Ranch and dropped into a tie with Saugus for first place in the Foothill League. It was a bit of a stunner for Valencia to lose to West Ranch. The West Ranch boys are in fifth place in the Foothill League and 6-4. Valencia plays Canyon in its next Foothill League game. The Golden Valley boys lost to Canyon 63-54 and is tied with Canyon for third place in the Foothill League. Golden Valley and Canyon have 6-3 records in the Foothill League before losing to Canyon. Golden Valley beat Royal 66-40. Golden Valley plays Saugus in its next Foothill League game. The West Ranch boys beat Valencia 67-2 and Grant 64-63. They will play Legacy Christian Academy and Village Christian before their next Foothill League game against Hart. The Hart boys lost two Foothill League games to Golden Valley 57-39 and to Saugus 61-59. Hart is 1-8 and in sixth place in the Foothill League. The Hart boys play Castaic in their next Foothill League game. The Castaic boys lost two Foothill League games to Golden Valley and Valencia and are 0-8 in the Foothill League. So let's talk about the Valencia girls basketball team. They won 6 of the past 7 games and leads the final Foothill League barely over Hart. Valencia beat Castaic and West Ranch to improve to 9-1 in the Foothill League. The Valencia girls lost to Flint Ridge Prep 53-46 between the games with Castaic and West Ranch. Valencia plays Canyon in its next Foothill League game. The Hart girls won 2 Foothill League games and improved to 8-1 in the Foothill League. Hart beat Golden Valley and Saugus to keep pace with Valencia. The Hart girls play Castaic in their next Foothill League game. The Canyon girls won 3 games in a row, including over West Ranch and Golden Valley, and are in third place in the Foothill League at 6-3. Canyon plays Valencia their next Foothill League game. The Saugus girls beat West Ranch but lost to Hart and are in fourth place in the Foothill League. Saugus is 5-5 in the Foothill League and plays Golden Valley next. So the Golden Valley girls lost to Hart and Canyon and dropped to 2-7 in the Foothill League. Golden Valley plays Saugus in its next Foothill League game. The West Ranch girls lost 2 Foothill League games to Saugus and Valencia and are 2-8 in the Foothill League. West Ranch plays Palmdale Academy, Chartered, and Taft before their next Foothill League game against Hart. Castaic girls lost to Valencia and dropped to 1-8 in the Foothill League. Castaic also lost to Quartz Hill. Castaic girls play Royal before facing Hart in their next Foothill League game. So, Tim, can you talk to us about the Rams and what's going on there?
Right, yeah. So the Super Bowl is the last NFL game of the season. It's going to be between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. So as the NFL season's winding down and the playoffs are all over, I thought I'd take a look at some of the teams that are moving in the right direction and some that are not. So the Rams are one of those teams going in the right direction. The Rams might have lost to the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round of the NFL playoffs, and the Eagles are headed to the Super Bowl to play the Chiefs. But even though the Rams ended their season in a playoff game played in a snowstorm, they put together an impressive season and made a surprising run. They are definitely one of the teams heading in the right direction. With the Super Bowl set and the football world waiting for the game to happen, here is a look at the 4 teams on the rise and 4 teams on the decline. First, the Rams. The Rams started the season 1-4. Injuries played a big part in the slow start. Receivers Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua spent the first 2 months of the season injured. Nacua was on injured reserve for more than a month. In addition, the offensive line was hit with injuries. It took almost half the season before all the players on the offensive line were healthy enough to play together. Once the team was healthy and at full strength, the season turned around for the Rams. The improvement was evident as the second half of the season unfolded. Not only was the team winning games, scoring points, and looking more and more like a playoff team every week, the defense matured quickly and became a force. Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, the top 2 draft picks for the Rams, turned into 2 of the best players on the team. The defense is young and talented. The offense has star receivers and playmakers at running back and tight end. And quarterback Matthew Stafford is still one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. The Rams are definitely a team on the rise. The Chargers didn't look good in the playoffs. They lost to the Houston Texans in the first round, but let's face it, they were blown out by the Texans in the first round of the playoffs. But for the Chargers, making the playoffs was a huge step forward. Jim Harbaugh looks like the right choice at coach for the Chargers. Justin Herbert looks like the right quarterback for the Chargers. And the Chargers need to add a couple more players to become a more legitimate threat in the playoffs. They are close and definitely going in the right direction. The Washington Commanders are on the rise too. The Commanders not only won 2 playoff games, they won both of them on the road. Not only were the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, they were there with a rookie quarterback, a new coach, and a new culture. The expectations for the Commanders were not very high when the season started. It was supposed to be a team going through growing pains with Jaden Daniels, the rookie at quarterback, and Dan Quinn in his first year as coach. But Daniels turned into a comeback machine. The Commanders were never out of a game if it was close in the fourth quarter. Quinn turned into a confident and creative coach, letting Daniels use all his skills to benefit the team. It looks like the Commanders are going to be a Super Bowl contender for a while. The Denver Broncos are another team on the rise. It took Coach Sean Payton a year to find his quarterback. It took a year for for him to put the pieces in place for the team that he wanted. It didn't take Payton long to turn the Broncos into a playoff team. Payton has plenty of playoff and Super Bowl experience. He now has a quarterback to guide them through the tough playoff matchups and find success. Quarterback Bo Nix is still learning, but he has shown he is fearless, he is talented, and he will make great plays if given the opportunity. Playing in the AFC West is not going to be easy for the Broncos, but it looks like they have the right combination to be in the playoffs every year. Okay, so these are some of the teams I think are on the decline. First, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Sure, the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. Sure, the Chiefs are playing for their 3rd Super Bowl championship in a row. And sure, the team has won 3 Super Bowls. And sure, no team has ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row. This kind of run can't last forever, though. The Chiefs still have Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, who is in the prime of his career. But even he has to be tired. The whole Chiefs team has to run out of steam eventually. It must be exhausting making 3 Super Bowl runs in a row. And the Chiefs might be on top now, but they have to be ready to start walking down the mountain by now. The Philadelphia Eagles are another team on the decline. This is another team that needs a break. They have been a successful playoff team for a few years now. Quarterback Jalen Hurts has to be ready for a little rest after sacrificing his body through the playoffs year after year. The Eagles added Saquon Barkley, who was arguably the best player in the NFL this season, but he is not a young man anymore. He is a bad man. He probably has his best days behind him. The Eagles are not only an aging, declining team, they have the Commanders to contend with twice a year, and in their division. It's going to be hard for the Eagles to play at this high level for the foreseeable future. What other team on the downside is the Detroit Lions. The Lions let everyone down. They were supposed to be the biggest threat to the Eagles. They were supposed to be the team that could challenge the Chiefs. Instead, they are the team that doesn't live up to the hype. But that is what the Lions do best. Maybe it was playoff jitters. Maybe being a playoff favorite was too big of a burden to bear. Maybe Jared Goff peaked with the Rams. Maybe his Super Bowl days are past him. Maybe Coach Dan Campbell has a bad gambling habit. Sure, he was on the winning side of some. Let's start again. Maybe Coach Dan Campbell has a bad gambling habit. Sure, he was on the winning side of some risky choices, but they seem to catch up with him in the playoffs. The good news is the other teams in the NFC Central are rebuilding. The Vikings are going to break in a new quarterback. The Bears are going to break in a new coach, and the Packers are going to hope their quarterback and receivers stop breaking. The Lions are still the best team in the division. They just aren't the best team in the playoffs. And finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So somebody had to win the NFC South, and the Buccaneers met the challenge. It is still a bad division. Good news for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield might be the best quarterback in the division. Bad news is Mayfield is one of the worst quarterbacks in the playoffs. The Buccaneers might have good enough team to win the division again, but it doesn't mean they are going to be a good playoff team. The Buccaneers aren't getting any better, but until something changes, they will be first round fodder again.
So, Tim, so you're forgetting that the Chiefs also have Taylor Swift.
I didn't forget it. I do know that the Chiefs still have Taylor Swift. Yes.
Yeah. So, but also I was going to ask you about the Rams. So there's some chatter out there that Matt Stafford may not return. He may be retiring. Is that, what do you think about that?
I don't think Matt Stafford's going to retire. I mean, he is old. And I think he's 38 now. I think he turns 38 before the season starts next season. And yeah, he's at the end of his career. Even though he may be in his last days in the NFL, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So, I don't think he's going to retire, but I've been hearing actually some rumors, some whispers about him being on the trading block too. And that might happen, maybe not next season, but the year after that. So, I mean, I do think the Rams are going to try to make one more run at the Super Bowl, one more run at the playoffs with Stafford at quarterback and the team they have together. Like I said, they just need to add a couple more pieces and they can do that in the draft. But I don't think Stafford's going to go anywhere this season. But at the same time, if get off to a slow start like they did last season, he might be on the trading block.
So what went wrong with the Chargers in their playoff loss to the Texans? Was it a case of nerves or bad matchup? Something else?
Well, the Chargers made a lot of changes in the offseason before last season started. They brought in the new coach, Jim Harbaugh, and they added some players through the draft that they don't normally add to their team. They went with offensive linemen. They went with defensive players that are brought in a different type of attitude to the team, a different toughness to the team. So I don't know if it's really to point anything that went wrong with this team. I think that, Jim Harbaugh needs some time to get more comfortable with this team as his first year at coach with the new team. And, he had to bring in his culture and get his players to follow him and let him guide them through the season and through the playoffs. And there was a big difference during the regular season. I mean, the Chargers won games that they would have lost in years past, and they were a solid playoff team. It was an embarrassing loss to the Texans, though, and that can't happen again. Jim Harbaugh can't prepare for a playoff game and lose that way again. That was just bad. But I think that Jim Harbaugh is the right coach for this team. Justin Herbert is the right quarterback for this team. And it's the culture that they have put in place is the right culture for this team. So they will be a playoff team again. And I think the next time they get into the playoffs, they're going to be a little more threatening than they were the first time.
All right. So let's talk about the NHL. So the Kings are on a 5-game East Coast road trip. It didn't start well. The Kings lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets in overtime in the first game of the road trip. They followed with a loss to the Detroit Red Wings. What might be more concerning is that the Kings have scored more than 2 goals in a game since January 18th. They beat the Canucks in Vancouver 5-1. In the game against the Red Wings, the Kings scored twice in the first period and had a 2-0 lead. But the Red Wings scored 5 unanswered goals and won 5-2. Kings coach Jim Heller talked about how his team lost the game against the Red Wings.
A lot of frustration from the guys, in the room. Just from your perspective, what are your takeaways from that one overall?
Yeah, I think we should be frustrated. I thought the first period was pretty good. Second period, lots of turnovers through the neutral zone, so we didn't establish the forecheck. We did in the first, and we didn't in the second. And I think that was a little bit, if I had to pick one theme for us this year that, it's been a lot of positive, but if I had to think about one theme that's been some negatives, the second period turnovers. I don't even want to say turnovers, just not being willing to forecheck in the second period.
Was the third goal maybe the worst example of that, with kind of a self-inflicted one in a 2-2 game?
Makes no sense. That's the way I look at that. We did a good job. We exit the puck. You're shorthanded. Just a poor decision.
If you look at the 5-on-3 goal, I know 5-on-3s are never great, but was it being 2 offensive zone penalties maybe make that one hurt a little bit more with how those came?
The first one, Turk's going for the puck. I have no issue with that. The second one, again, just not a good play. And then great execution by them on the 5-on-3. Great pass, great shot. So and not much you can do with that. You just can't put yourself down 5-on-3.
If you look at the third period in Columbus, the push was excellent from the group. It didn't maybe feel like it had that same bite tonight. Maybe you just run out of gas a little bit down the stretch.
I don't know if that. I think we were frustrated in the second period, probably in the second intermission. We had good energy after the first, second period. We didn't have the energy that we needed coming out of the dressing room, I think. Coach was mad, and lots of people were mad. So, we just didn't respond very well.
Did you think it really took the wind out of your sails? You guys get a little puck luck on the second goal, and then they are able to come right back and get one.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably a pretty timely goal for them. Really lucky goal for us. Really timely for them, for sure. I mean, our best chances we probably shot wide too. There's that phenomenon. And give Talbs credit. I thought Talbs was there when he needed to be. He had a big save, I think, off of Morsey early when we were pushing early. So give Talbs credit.
Kevin got that goal there just by changing the angle, getting the puck in net. It felt like he was around it, maybe pretty dangerous all night. Does it feel like he's kind of consistently stringing some dangerous nights together?
I think he is. And give Phil credit. He was in front of Talbs on that one. Talbs didn't have a chance to see that one. So. But Kevin's game is getting better. I mean, I think we've talked about that a little bit. I think he's a pretty consistent level of intensity out of him. You know what I mean? And I think he's much more dangerous, has the puck more. I think he's going to have a really good second.
So the Kings play the Panthers and Lightning in Florida before finishing the trip against the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, so that's our show. So tune in next week for more discussions about the news from Santa Clarita. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM at 9 on Saturday mornings. You can also watch us on YouTube, Instagram, and listen to us on SantaClaritaStar.com. Wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a comment and be sure to subscribe to Santa Clarita Weekly online. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Santa Clarita Weekly. You can watch the show on Santa Clarita Star's YouTube channel and Facebook page, as well as listen in on the radio at KQRU 107.9. Visit SantaClaritaStar.com for more content and tune in right here to KQRU 107.9. A new voice for Santa Clarita.